Yeah, good afternoon again. This is me responding to the assignment on page 117. Variations on U.S. English. Obviously, we need to change it to Kiwi English as well. Yeah, the first question, have you ever had problems understanding a native speaker of English who did not speak U.S. English? I probably found that in the 80s and early 90s. Immigrating to New Zealand, I had not anticipated meeting all the people from the different British Isles. And so that was a shift, constantly hearing Irish, Scottish, and the different English dialects that are out there. I didn't expect that. I expected to come to New Zealand and I'd just be engaging New Zealand English speakers. But you engage the English, the Great Britain-based English speakers as well. I think overseas too, we started engaging with Filipinos and hearing their particular accent as well, and Asians and the way they spoke. And I think you'd have to tune it in after a while, and I could probably get it. The interesting one was meeting some Chinese teachers of English up in China. And because they had actually never spoken to a Western English native speaker, they spoke English from grammatical writings in a dictionary. So they spoke grammatically correct dictionary English. And they were appalled that I could not understand it. And I felt great sympathy for them. They were very brave. This was during the communist Cultural Revolution. That they were kids and stuff, so they actually were cut off from the Western-speaking world, and had no idea on how to speak speak English fluently. And we know from teaching English is that that's a different skill set. Your oral, conversational English that you have for that. So yeah, probably the people that I work with now. The Cambodians, I have some Cambodians that I really have to relax and listen to. Sometimes I have to whip out an A5 paper and just diagram it and say, is this what you're saying? And that kind of helps us get over the line. In my capacity of supervision with different ethnic groups, it is a challenge to get to the challenges of pastoral ministry and get deep and personal when English is a second language for many people. And so we kind of stumble through that. But I think with all the other nuances, you kind of get there with that. The other question is, how do you feel when you hear someone speaking a language you don't understand? Yeah, by the grace of God in my life journey, I'm used to it. I've been around all kinds of people with different languages. I visit all kinds of different churches here in New Zealand for that. One thing I have found was that when I am translated, one thing I find helpful is sentence by sentence. Make sure I don't use jargon. When I first came to New Zealand, I had to make sure I didn't use American slang. And when I was overseas in Asia, I don't use Kiwi slang. And I try to minimize Kiwi slang here as well. Like I say, I speak in different churches here in this country, and I'm often translated. And so I find simple English, a sentence at a time, or summarizing a paragraph usually works with that. I think to flip this whole thing around, I can identify with some of the frustrations of a migrant learning English because I was also a migrant to Macau learning Cantonese. And the Macau people were very patient. It was a great environment to learn Cantonese. Because the Portuguese really never bothered learning Cantonese, they were quite intrigued that a Westerner would be trying to learn language, so they were very encouraging on that. In times I thought I would be speaking correctly, and people are shaking their heads. Often it was a cultural bias. It would be like, you've got a white face. How can Chinese be coming out of that white face? I had a young boy one time come up to me, and he says, I know who you are. You're a Chinese person speaking Cantonese, but you got a white mask on. So that was some of the biases that we just kind of had to work through with that. But yeah, pretty much now I've heard most other countries English, and yeah, it's been a fascinating experience to share. One of the lingua franca languages of the world. So anyway, that's my response to that those questions on 117.